It should send shivers down your spine when I say that the arms market in Europe is spiraling out of control. It's as if the world is gorging Ukraine with the weaponry in an unprecedented feast of militarism, making the nation a ticking time bomb of unpredictably armed threats with no one keeping tabs. Astonishingly, we seem oblivious to the fact that they might be inadvertently nurturing an explosive underground arms empire courtesy of NATO's prodigal and mindless arms donations to Ukraine. Hi and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I'm your host Vedika. Let's begin. The arms aid intended for Ukraine of late has turned into an administrative nightmare. It's not just about quantities exceeding limits, but a profound failure in accountability, which came to light when the US military's record-keeping blunders were made public in a recent government watchdog report. In a worrisome development, the US Defense Department's Inspector General highlighted that the military personnel in charge of transferring equipment to Ukraine through an aerial port in Jasionka, Poland, failed to maintain necessary records for defense items transferred. We are not discussing a handful of guns here. We are talking about thousands of small arms, night vision optic devices, and various types of cold weather gear. It is terrifying to imagine the ramifications of this gross negligence. The Inspector General's report alerts us to an increased risk that the US military is unknowingly providing more equipment than authorized and may not be able to verify the specific number of defense materials sent to Ukraine. It's like handing over the keys to a dynamite factory to an unmonitored child, disastrous and unthinkable. In parallel, consider Sweden, one of the Western European countries currently grappling with an upsurge of firearm-related violence, despite having some of the world's strictest gun laws. The growing number of gangs and criminal networks importing illegal firearms is terrorizing the tranquility of Scandinavian nation. Serbian pistols and Yugoslav-era hand grenades, the legacy of the notorious Yugoslav mafia, have found their way into Sweden's street violence. In addition, Ukraine's unchecked weapons supply, according to local reports, has started contributing to this lethal mix, further escalating the crisis. Moreover, the growing influx of weapons from Ukraine is making its presence felt across Europe. Croatian police recently cracked down on a drug and firearm trafficking ring operating across Europe, uncovering a stash of weapons possibly linked to the ongoing war in Ukraine. Understandably, the European Commission is scrambling to tighten its gun laws. However, let's not lose sight of the elephant in the room. The war in Ukraine, while distressing in its own right, is only the tip of the iceberg. The real problem lies in the unchecked, chaotic arms supply, not just to Ukraine, but to other conflict-ridden regions worldwide. Estimates suggest that approximately 35 million illicit weapons are currently circulating within the EU, around half the number of legally owned guns. How did they allow such a massive quantity of illegal weapons to infest society? The tragic answer lies within the failure to maintain accountability for arms shipments meant for conflict zones. Another particularly distressing revelation came from Maria Zakharova, a spokeswoman for Russian Foreign Ministry, who claimed the NATO military cargoes are ending up in the hands of terrorists, extremists, and criminal groups in the Middle East, Central Africa, and Southeast Asia. Although unsubstantiated, these allegations underline the urgency for stricter controls on arms shipments. The narrative is clear. We are on the precipice of a full-blown disaster. The unchecked, undisciplined, and irresponsible arms supply to Ukraine, courtesy of NATO, is spurring the rise of a dangerous underground arms empire. Unless NATO allies arrest this trend, they are staring at a Europe and indeed a world marred by the catastrophic fallout of proliferating uncontrolled weaponry. The West needs to wake up. They cannot afford to be the enablers of terrorists and criminals. It's high time the allies stop the reckless arms aid and replace it with responsible, accountable policies. The cost of failure is too high. It's the future of a peaceful, secure Europe and ultimately the world.